The NBR bill is introduced, the Constitution Modernization Commission hires an executive director, and will there be a new way to tax lawyers? I'm Todd Book, and this is On the Books. The Ohio Constitution Modernization Commission was created to review the Constitution to determine if there were needed changes. The commission has been without much activity over the last few years, and the thought on the square was that an executive director was needed to, in essence, give the ship a captain. Such a captain was recently hired when Stephen Holland, the longtime administrative director of the Ohio Supreme Court, was hired to be the first executive director of the commission. The thought is that the commission will attack such issues as redistricting, how we draw district lines here in Ohio, as well as extending term limits as early as this spring. On the national scene, the Tax Reform Act of 2014 was recently introduced in Congress. A provision of the bill has drawn strong protests from such groups as the American Bar Association, the Ohio State Bar Association, and other state bar associations around the country. And what that provision does is it changes the accounting method from the cash method to the accrual method for all firms with gross receipts over $10 million. Although that change will bring billions of dollars into the federal government, it could cause firms to pay taxes on money that has not been received, or for that matter, may never be received. An additional concern is that if this method takes hold, it could be applied to smaller firms as well as solo practitioners. In order to avoid the proverbial camel's nose from getting in the tent, the OSBA has voiced our strong opposition to our congressional delegation and will continue to voice that opposition as we travel to Washington in April for ABA Days. Following up on last week's story about missed school days, the House and the Senate ironed out their differences on House Bill 416 and granted 4 more calamity days. The bill also excuses graduating seniors from having to return after graduation to make up any missed days. Rejoice, it looks like we will have a spring break. As expected, the NBR, House Bill 472, was introduced this week, and Tim Keene, the governor's budget director, as well as other members of the cabinet, presented testimony to the House Ways and Means Committee highlighting the provisions of the bill. Those provisions include a reduction in the state income tax to below 5%, an increase in the oil and gas severance tax, and an increase in the commercial activity tax. However, the increase only applies to gross receipts over $1 million, and it does not modify the minimum tax of $150. Speaker of the House Bill Batchelder expects the bill to be broken up into as many as 11 separate pieces of legislation. The question being asked is, will the Republican-controlled House and Senate be willing to increase any taxes in an election year, even when the proposal includes an income tax cut? We'll be watching in the coming weeks as the NBR progresses through the legislature. That's the word on the square. This is Todd Book with On the Books.